All right, we're live, guys. The Browns pull out a thriller at Paul Brown Stadium this afternoon. It's now evening, but 37-34. Yeah, I'm a bit dazed and confused right now. And a gutsy performance, well, it was beyond gutsy by Baker Mayfield to flip the way he did. Lots of guys stepping up from the background to basically do their jobs. They're pretty nonchalant about it, too. And just a whole bunch of stuff to like. And one thing I think still needs addressed, but that's another topic. At any rate, what about Baker in this game, guys? What say we about Baker today after he starts 0 for 5 in the first quarter?
Marla?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what happened to him, but it was the old Baker Mayfield just came out of nowhere after a horrible start. I mean, I'm thinking, it's looking like he's going to be yanked again. And my takeaway was he found himself, and who knows how. Maybe it's people that encouraged him during the week. Maybe somebody said something on the sideline. I mean, you're not going to totally explain it, but that was the Baker Mayfield they drafted, and we haven't seen virtually all season. I mean, the 21 consecutive completions, I mean, part of me didn't think we were going to see that again just because of how his gunslinger, especially not from him. I mean, that's Bernie Kosar and Kelly Holcomb held the record of 16. So that, and the gunslinger that Baker is didn't even seem to be, that's not his MO, but he showed me some toughness and really, I mean, I'm not ready to say that he's proved that he's going to get this big time extension, but it was a huge, stunning transformation when you couldn't have virtually started any worse.
Steve, I heard the Browns pulled up a in-game post you wrote on the Microsoft Surface and showed it to Baker on the sideline.
Nate, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, unless it would be to reference the column, the mini column, in-game column I kind of wrote, 6-inch piece saying they should have yanked Mayfield before the Pittsburgh game, and certainly should not have started him today, and should have waited until after the bye to play him again. Now, in my defense, here I'm going to go off camera a little bit. So that all those arrows have gone by now. But I said, not bench him, but let him rest up and heal psychologically and physically until after the bye. And it was funny, I pushed the button on that one, and it got out right exactly when his 20 pass streak began. So, some of us had some laughs about that. Yeah, but I'm not going to apologize for writing that. I thought that at the time, and I guess I'd be really stupid to think it now, because he wants to play and prove that he could play. But Marla, to your point, how did Mayfield find himself? I think I have a pretty good idea why. And one of the things I was focusing on as the game progressed was the pass rush. Of course, last week against Pittsburgh, it was just miserable from his perspective. I mean, the only thing he saw all afternoon was the breath of a Steeler. Today, I noticed that the turning point was he had good protection on a pass to Bryant, and he overthrew him by about 20 yards. It was a terrible pass. He had good protection. He rushed him. It's almost like at that moment he had an epiphany and said, dang, the protection was there. And he said this after the game. He said, I need to trust the protection. I think from that moment on, part of his game was he began to trust the protection, took a deep breath, and that might be, it is in my mind, possibly where he found himself today.
Somebody brought up an interesting question on that. Did the play calling change from the first quarter on? Does anyone think? Did anyone notice that? Where
definitely changed, George.
Where the ball was getting more quicker and
shorter passes. Yep.
Okay.
Short, quick passes, and in the past, when Mayfield's been successful, it's when the play calling has kind of taken the rush away from him by nature and given him a game flow that is conducive to his talents.
And Steve, obviously, I'm kidding with you about lighting the fire, but you're right about the timing of it. And I think that I agree with you at the beginning of the game. I mean, it was awful. The first pass for the second game in a row was an interception. He was 0 for 5 in the first quarter. First time the Browns failed to complete a pass in the opening quarter since, what was it, George, 2017 season finale with Deshaun Kaiser playing the Steelers. So
Yeah.
ESPN Stats and Info nugget for you, by the way. I want to credit them. But the bottom line is we found out today that he's been playing with a cracked rib. We knew chest/rib, whole right side was messed up. Well, cracked rib came out today in the broadcast, and he looked in the first quarter like a guy playing through a cracked rib. And then all of a sudden, it was like the cracked rib didn't matter anymore. So, I mean, I give him a ton of credit.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the fact that they was hurt on the interception had anything to do with the play calling changing?
That's a good question. That's a darn good question. I don't think so.
Chicken and egg thing.
He took a few. He took a few shots after that. He took a few deep shots after that. So maybe he made more of an effort. And the one thing I don't know if you guys noticed on that pick, he had no air under it. There was zero air under it. So it was a gift for Darius Phillips of the Bengals on that interception. He got no air under it. And it looked to me like he underthrew it. So,
And of course, Baker said he had to get Phillips back, and he completed the defining passes over Phillips in the game-winning drive, including the touchdown pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then a couple plays earlier, the 30-yarder to Higgins. Just an amazing turn. I don't know if I've seen an in-game turnaround quite like it. Especially from a Browns quarterback. I mean,
the only thing I can think of is the greatest comeback ever when I was in Buffalo against Houston. I think that was almost as. But I mean, I've never seen him from the Browns.
I mean, it's almost as if he felt his career slipping away, and he pulled it back. It was weird.
That's dramatic, but I don't necessarily disagree. Like so much pressure. He was such a target of rampant criticism. He came out looking like a dud again, and I don't know if it was just like, hey, I'm going to cut it loose or whatever. The play calling, I think, I agree with Steve, definitely helped. But man, I mean, just he flipped a switch and it was nuts. And the Bengals aren't world beaters, we know that, so that helps. But you got to give Mayfield credit, and I do.
All right.
Talk about
What's he going to do without OBJ? Because we have no clarity on how severe that injury is at this point. The Browns are fearful, apparently, that it's serious.
Yeah, they're fearful it's serious. I asked Kevin Stefanski in the Zoom after the game if it involves the ACL, because usually the medical staff is able to I've had a torn ACL, and move your leg around, and they're able to tell, if your knee moves a certain way, then you're probably with a torn ACL, and then they have an MRI to confirm it. Well, Stefanski said he didn't want to speculate at all until the MRI, and the MRI is tomorrow morning. So that's where we're at. But Brown's teammates of Beckham talked in somber tones about him. So it's a great question of what they're going to do without him. Jarvis Landry's playing through a broken rib of his own, and Mayfield confirmed that those two are in the hospital from safe distance, he said, in the COVID era, getting ribs checked out together after the Week 5 game against the Colts. Obviously, we can talk about the other guys who stepped up today, though.
Oh, and see, that's kind of heartening, because we've seen Rashard Higgins in the past flash just a wee bit. And now he's getting his opportunity, and he has that he's always had that chemistry with Baker. I think he had over 100 yards receiving today.
He did.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
He did.
So, that bodes well, because let's face it, is there a lot of tape out on Higgins? Probably not. And there's that chemistry factor. And then you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who just stepped up out of the blue. And, Ohio State, Michigan, you got to appreciate what he did today. That's a joke, by the way.
Well, obviously they don't have anybody that can make the acrobatic plays that Odell can make, but I do feel like some of these young guys are hungry and ready to try to make a name for themselves. Obviously, it's like I said, it's a different skill set, but that doesn't mean it can't work.
Guys, I see this a little bit as a sequel to 2014, one of the few moments in the expansion era when the Browns got off to a good start, when the season along about this time was anything close to relevant. But you all will recall that in 2014, the Browns didn't just beat the Steelers, they kicked their butts. And in that game, they improved to 5-3. However, in that game, they also lost Kevin Mack. I think it was right before the end of the first half. But they finished out the second half, maybe on an adrenaline rush or whatever it was. But they finished off one of the better games that they played since 1999 in beating the Steelers, but incurring a very serious and strategically important injury during the game. Today, they improved to 6-2, but they lose OBJ. In this case, very early in the game, before they had a chance to establish anything. But the question to me would be, were they playing somewhat on adrenaline, knowing that in the moment, it was, all guns had to be firing, and Hollywood was playing on adrenaline, and the whole team was. But now, as you mentioned, George, the other team gets a look at film and so forth. Do the other teams adjust, as the other teams eventually did in 2014, and the loss of a center caught up with the Browns, and they had a terrible finish that year. So I see a lot of parallels.
Yeah, what's interesting is we're gonna see this play out. Odell's I'm sure gonna miss some time. The way they're talking about it, just we have to wait to find out how much. But Nick Chubb's already out with a knee injury, and they're looking to get him back sooner than later. But it's been a few weeks, and now with OBJ going out, you lose another explosive home run hitter. The guy who can take the end around 50 yards for a touchdown against the Cowboys to win you the game. But what I could see happening is I could see Baker get in on a roll, using this game to parlay future success here in this stretch, where they have some teams that aren't the world beaters that the Ravens and Steelers are. And I could see Baker stringing together some good games. And then the talk is, well, is he actually better off without Odell because he's not burdened by having to get him the ball?
That's already started. Oh,
okay. So if it's already started, then never mind. But yeah, you could see that. Because I think that is an interesting way to look at it. You're obviously losing an ultra talented player. Again, the Cowboys game, he took over 3 touchdowns. He can win you a game like that. But does the offense flow better without him? I don't know. We're gonna see life without him here for at least some time.
Let me shoot one other 2014 thought. Now that you make that point, Nate, but the Browns that year were 7-4 at one point, and then they got ultra talented Josh Gordon back, and they tanked, coinciding with the return of Gordon. So I'm not comparing Odell Beckham and Josh Gordon in terms of their influence in the locker room and that sort of thing, but that happened. The Browns were in 2014 were supposed to be great guns when they got Gordon back, and they were just the opposite.
And I remember
in this case, you would have thought that there would have been a real problem. Yeah,
I remember Hoyer trying to force the ball to Gordon a lot when he got back. He was force feeding him everything. It wasn't a pretty sight. So you want to go to 2014, Back to the Future, when they seemed relevant. They're 5-2 right now. What's that mean in the grand scheme of things right now?
Well, it means to me that Kevin Stefanski has a way of getting these guys to focus and bounce back from these blowout losses. They did it twice against the Bengals. I mean, we talk about Baker being resilient in this game, but the whole team was really resilient within this game. And it centers around him. But, they came back from an early deficit and, 38-7 last week to the Steelers. They faced questions about it all week, and they bounced back with a win on the road. So I think it's significant. And now they have the Raiders and then the bye. So 6-2 is right there for them before the bye. And man, I could have never predicted 6-2 at the bye. So they have a shot at it.
You had something, Steve?
Just the thought, George, that 5-2. Who knows what it? And we're figuring out at this moment, George, what it means, because the Browns have not been 5-2 in the expansion era. Their best records were 4-3. I think there were 3 different times. Pettin had one of the 4-3s. Butch had one of the 4-3s. Might have been Romeo with the other one, but there have only been 3 of those. But there have been none of these 5-2. So now it's happy days are here again. Okay, ask your great grandfather to put that one on your 78 RPM and play that.
Look, I'm from the era of turntables, my friend. I know what a 78 RPM is.
I still have my turntable in the basement too.
Marla, where are you at with 5-2? Big picture.
Big picture. I still don't think they can. I think they can get a wild card bid if they can, if Baker can, take off from here. I don't think they can win a wild card game without fixing this defense. I mean, but I feel good about where they are and the fact that they will have a chance to make the playoffs for the first time since 2002. I don't know if right now I don't feel great about him winning a playoff game, but maybe when Nick Chubb comes back, that'll change my mind.
Look at how this schedule sets up. You got Vegas. That feels weird to say. You got the Texans, who haven't been, let's use the word consistent. And then you have
Eagles and Jaguars.
Yeah, the Eagles in the least of the East in the NFC.
Yeah, your next real daunting task is, it's not until December 6th, Tennessee. Then you have Tennessee, Baltimore. Then you have the Giants and the Jets. You should win those on paper. They're going to be favored. And then the Steelers to finish. So I count 3 really tough games left.
But here's a question. Is it conceivable they're 9-2?
Oh my God. They'd be burning down downtown if that happens.
I mean, we're going to end on this note because we're going long, but is it conceivable the way it lines up that they're 9-2?
Yeah. I mean, they're 5-2 now. And the next 4, come before that Tennessee game. But I got a thing about Houston and Philly. I think they're deceiving. They're both coming to Cleveland, but I'm probably not going to pick the Browns in both those games. I've got a lot of Deshaun Watson respect. I know they fired the coach and everything. Romeo's there as the interim, but I think one of those is going to be more dangerous than you think it is on paper, just looking at records.
I don't disagree. I think Philadelphia's one of those gotcha games because Carson Wentz showed this past week what he's still capable of doing. It's just weird thinking about it in a universe that's not the Bizarro universe. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah.
There's a young people's reference for you, Steve. Bizarro universe.
Okay, thanks, George. No, I think it comes down to Mayfield and the play calling. I thought today, of course, we'll all agree it was one of the weaker defenses they're going to face, but against average to lesser defenses, to me, those winnable games, they will win if they build on this combination of Mayfield responds to the play calling that suits him. So I think, George, I agree, or Nate, I agree with you that the Philly and the Houston games are daunting, but I think they're both are very winnable. I might pick the Browns in both of those. Winnable. If in this next game against Oakland, if Mayfield plays and he's healthy and he looks good and the play calling seems to suit him again, I'll probably wind up picking the Browns in those games because I think that's the key to the whole team. Mayfield.
Oh, we in an agreement with something. All right.
Yeah, we all agree.
We have stories to write, people. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week after the Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders. That's just so bizarre. At any rate, after the Raiders come to town. Thanks for tuning in. Until then.